So about 2 weeks ago, someone that I know came up to me rather abruptly and said, "Hey, you're nerdy about languages, aren't you?" And having no idea what he was getting to, I was like, yes. And then he was like, "Great, I'm cleaning out some old stuff and I have some French and German tapes and answer keys. Do you want them?" And I was like, yes. So now I have extra resources for German and French whenever I get around to learning those languages. In fact, I think I want to put this on my shelf. So here on the internet, we have a lot of fandoms. In fact, you can see a lot of my fandoms in this very room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Tipios poster will not come down for some reason. And 7. On the internet, it's relatively easy to find communities of people that are into the same things that I am into, which is great, but it doesn't make the job of introducing it to people any easier and doesn't give me any sort of experience in trying to hone that skill. And it's definitely a skill that should be and needs to be developed within those of us that have lots of fandoms, because on the internet it's relatively easy for us to sort of isolate ourselves from people who aren't into our things and pretend like anyone who would enjoy our various fandoms already knows about it. And the truth is, that's simply not true. There's lots of things that people who aren't fans of what you're fans of might be fans of, but just don't know about yet or haven't really checked out yet. What I'd like to share with you today are 3 or 4 tips on how to share your interests with other people in a way that could potentially get them interested in it as well and doesn't just result in everything you say blowing over their heads and them kind of nodding and saying, "That's nice." So number 1, pick one. I know this can be very difficult, and especially if you're good friends with someone that isn't into the things that you're into, you can try and like sort of give them this immersion therapy to get them into all of your fandoms, sit them down and have them watch YouTube videos while playing Portal, while listening to your favorite bands. But in reality, in a lot of cases, even if you were able to get someone in that scenario, you wouldn't be making them a fan of any of the things that you were trying to get them into. Instead, we as fans have to realize that they are fans as well of other things that take up a whole lot of their time, just like our fandoms take up a whole lot of our time. So the trick is to prioritize, to focus on one thing that you would really sincerely like them to get into and be able to discuss with them. Number 2, think of a really, really short summary beforehand. For example, I'm the only one in my family that has played either of the Portal games, and I would very much like other members of the family to get into this franchise. Some people in my family already know what Portal is, but for the people that don't, I have to be very careful in how I explain what Portal and the various paraphernalia that I get related to Portal are and represent. For example, when I got this mug in the mail and was asked what it was, what I heard in my head was, what's the history of the company in the game and the character in the game that makes this mug? In reality, the question was much, much simpler. Specifically, why did you buy a lemon mug? And the answer for that simpler question is about a sentence long. It's a reference from a video game that I very much enjoy. Now, that doesn't answer all of the possible questions about the mug, and it doesn't answer all of the questions that I necessarily want to answer, but it's the question that was asked. And with that brief answer, I leave the door open for them to ask more specific questions if they so desire. And in fact, starting at this 30,000-foot view and then waiting to be asked about each successive layer of detail is a great sort of just conversational strategy in general, because it lets the other person be involved in the conversation and try and sort of lead the conversation if they so desire. But a big part of being able to discuss your interests in that sort of tiered way is knowing how to describe them in a very sort of general focus. And that does not come very easily sometimes, so definitely think about that beforehand. Now, once the other party is aware of what your interest is, then there comes the difficult sort of stage of getting them interested in trying it for themselves. And so number 3 is to be very tactful about when and how you ask them to engage in your interests. Generally, getting started in a lot of these interests just requires that you have time. So waiting until there's a period where the other party has some spare time that isn't booked with work or school or appointments is a definite starting point. But then beyond that, just trying to gauge sort of their state of mind can be very, very helpful. Trying something new requires not only time, but a certain degree of energy and inquisitiveness. There aren't necessarily universal sort of signs of these attitudes, but as you get to know individual people better, you can sort of get a gauge as to how they're feeling on any particular day. Asking a few times at the right time, I think, will likely give you much better results than just asking every time that you can. Needless to say, whenever you do choose to suggest involvement in your interest, pitch it in a way that is as compelling to them as possible. Depending on the person and the time, the pitch that you want to use may be different. If the person's stressed, you want to describe the activity in the most relaxing sort of perspective. If the person is bored, you want to describe an activity in the most sort of engaging perspective available, while maintaining, of course, in the bounds of reality. If your interest is actually not that relaxing, you probably shouldn't pitch it that way. Planning your pitches in this sort of way can sort of help you avoid that aura of annoyingness that often is associated with people that are fans of a lot of different things. The final and probably most important thing you can do to try and sort of get people to open up to expanding their interests is to open up yourself to expanding yours, to the things that they are into. And I don't mean just sitting through or putting up with their things once or twice to get some sort of leverage to force them to join in with you. I mean actually trying to expand your mind and see the things that they see in what they love. Essentially, you should already be the kind of person who you want them to be, someone who's curious and interested and willing to step outside of their comfort zone. And again, the point of this isn't to gain some sort of leverage, say like, I got into your thing, so now you need to get into mine, or feel bad about yourself. The point of it is to show that you yourself are willing to sacrifice your time, just like you hope that they might. In the end, even if you don't get that person into your fandom, living this way just can help you enjoy life more, because it can help you appreciate more about the world around you and all of the awesomeness that's contained within it. It's great to be able to find people and communities that already are fans of our fandoms, because we don't have to spend the time and go through the paces of trying to figure out how to express why we love what we love in a way that doesn't require inside knowledge. But we're inevitably going to run into people that do not share our interests, and I would argue we will inevitably have very, very good friends that do not share a lot of our interests in common. Figuring out how to introduce and describe your interests to those who don't already share them is a really valuable tool and will serve you well going forward in life. Because there's few better feelings than being the person that introduces a friend into something that they love. This is Jacke Karashae, wishing you expanding fandoms.